Somebody was in the room with each of these 4 people before they knew it. Not a ghost, not a shadow that might have been nothing. A real breathing person standing close enough to touch them, waiting for the right moment. 2 of them found out in the dark. One found out on a beach that should have been the safest place on Earth. And one didn't find out until he was looking at the security footage afterward, watching a stranger walk past his hotel room door at 2 a.m. over and over for 3 straight nights. These are 4 true travel stories sent in by people who don't travel the same way anymore. Stay to the end. The last one still doesn't sit right with me. Story 1. The cellar under the lake house. 2 years ago, my fiancée Dana and I drove up to a small town in the Adirondacks so I could spend 4 days doing site inspections for my company. It wasn't glamorous work, but the town was gorgeous. Pine forests, a lake so still in the morning it looked like glass, and Dana had never seen anything like it. She took the week off just to come with me. I figured she'd hike during the day and I'd be back by 5 every evening. It felt like a real trip, not just a work trip with a +1. We found a lake house to rent for the week. It sat about a quarter mile down a dirt road, tucked behind a wall of pines, close enough to the water that you could hear it from the porch. The listing called it rustic charm, which I now know is real estate code for old enough to have secrets. What it actually had, tucked behind the pantry, was a low wooden door with a rusted iron latch that led down into a storm cellar, the kind of thing old lake houses have instead of a real basement. Dana joked on the first night that she'd never open that door for anything, that it looked like something out of a movie. I laughed and told her the only monster down there was probably a family of raccoons. I wish I hadn't laughed. The first night was fine. Too fine, looking back. We unpacked, cooked pasta on a stove that clicked 4 times before it caught, and fell asleep with the windows cracked so we could hear the lake lapping against the little dock out back. I remember thinking, right before I drifted off, that this might be the most peaceful place I'd ever stayed. That peace didn't last past sunrise the next day. The second night I woke up around 4 a.m. because Dana wasn't in bed. I found her in the kitchen wrapped in a blanket, wide awake, staring at nothing. She told me she'd woken up an hour earlier because she felt like the temperature in the room had dropped. And when she opened her eyes, she was positive, not thought, positive, that there was someone standing just inside the bedroom doorway, not moving, just standing there. She said by the time she worked up the courage to reach for the lamp, the doorway was empty. She hadn't been able to close her eyes since. I checked the house. Nothing. I told her it was a bad dream mixed with an unfamiliar room, and she wanted to believe me, so she let it go. That morning, before I left for work, she laid her hiking clothes out on the bed the way she always does, folded, stacked, ready to grab after her shower. When she came out 15 minutes later, the stack was gone. Not messed up. Gone. Her clothes were sitting neatly folded on the chair across the room instead, like someone had simply moved them somewhere else, just to prove they could. She called me at work in tears. I left early. When I got back, she showed me the chair, and I had no explanation for her, and for the first time I felt that cold drop in my stomach too. What made it worse was that her socks, which she'd set on top of the pile that morning, weren't in either location. Not on the bed, not on the chair. She checked her suitcase, the bathroom, under the bed. Gone. She wore a mismatched pair from her overnight bag instead, and she didn't say much for the rest of the afternoon. We drove into the small town center that evening to distract ourselves, and while we were getting ice cream, the older man behind the counter asked almost offhand how we were finding the old Hartwell place. When I told him fine, he gave a strange little pause and said only that it had quite a history before a customer came in and the conversation ended before I could ask him what that meant. We almost left that day, but the rental was non-refundable. $400 a night, and I told myself we were both just spooked and exhausted. That was my mistake. That evening, trying to salvage the trip, I made a show of walking through every room with her, checking every closet, even opening the cellar door and shining a light down the wooden steps at the neat rows of shelving and a broken chair below. "See?" I told her. "Nothing down there but spiders." She managed a small laugh. We locked up, double-checked the windows, and told ourselves the worst was behind us. It wasn't. Around 2 in the morning, we heard footsteps, not creaks, footsteps, slow ones, coming from directly beneath the kitchen floor, from the cellar. I grabbed the flashlight off the counter and Dana grabbed my arm so hard it left a mark the next day. I told her to stay by the front door with her shoes on. I walked to that low wooden pantry door, and I want to be honest with you. Every part of my body was telling me not to open it. I opened it anyway. The cellar smelled like wet stone and something else underneath it. Something sour, like old sweat that had dried into the walls over years. The steps groaned under me one at a time. My flashlight beam swept across shelving stacked with dusty mason jars, a broken chair with one leg missing, coils of rope hung from a nail, and then across a green canvas jacket hanging perfectly still against the far wall, half tucked behind a support beam. Except it wasn't hanging. There was a man inside it. He was standing so flat against that wall, so motionless that for one full second my brain tried to convince me it was a coat rack. Then his eyes moved to follow my flashlight. I don't remember deciding to run. I remember being at the top of the stairs, slamming that little door, and Dana already had the front door open because she heard me screaming her name before I even knew I was screaming. We didn't grab a single bag. We got in the car in socks and drove straight to the nearest gas station with our locks down and the hazards on. And I called the rental company from the parking lot, hands shaking too hard to type the address correctly. The person on the emergency line told me to call the police if I felt unsafe, which felt almost insulting, given that I just told her a man was possibly still standing in that cellar. We sat in that gas station parking lot until the sky started going gray, both of us jumping at every set of headlights that pulled in. Dana kept asking me the same question over and over. How long had he been down there? Had he been down there the whole time? Had he been down there on the first night when she swore someone was standing in our bedroom doorway? I didn't have an answer that made either of us feel better. Here's the part that still keeps me up. The property manager called us back the next morning, and before I could even finish describing the man, she went quiet on the line for a long moment. Then she told me the house had a caretaker 2 summers earlier, who'd been let go after guests complained he kept checking on the property while people were actively staying there, letting himself in during the day, once even while a family was asleep. They'd changed the locks on the house itself after that. Nobody had thought to change the heavy iron padlock on the cellar's outside hatch, the one built into the hillside around back, because nobody on the current staff even remembered that hatch existed, let alone that it opened from the outside too. We never went back for our bags. The rental company mailed them to us 3 weeks later in a box that still smelled faintly like wood smoke from that kitchen. Dana still won't stay anywhere with a basement, and now neither will I. Story 2. The man who photographed us for 3 nights. My girlfriend at the time, Priya, and I took a trip to a resort just outside Tulum, Mexico for her birthday. It was one of those places with private bungalows on stilts over the lagoon, string lights strung through the palms, the whole postcard package you see in the ads and never actually believe is real until you're standing in it. 4 nights, no schedule, no work emails. I'd saved for almost a year to take her there, and when we checked in and saw the bungalow for the first time, the mesh screen patio hanging right over the water, it genuinely felt like the trip was going to be perfect. The first 2 nights were perfect, genuinely perfect. Snorkeling in the morning, naps in the afternoon heat, dinner on the sand as the sun went down over the lagoon. It's the 3rd night I can't stop thinking about. We'd stayed out late at the swim-up bar after most other guests had gone to bed, then walked the mangrove boardwalk back toward our bungalow with a bottle of mezcal we'd smuggled out in a water bottle, laughing about nothing in particular the way you do on the good nights of a trip. The boardwalk lighting only ran every 20 feet or so, which left long stretches of near total dark between the lamps. About halfway down in one of those dark stretches, I heard something shift in the mangroves to our right. Not the wind, not an animal settling in for the night. A weight-bearing sound deliberate, like someone crouched low and adjusting their footing to stay balanced. I stopped walking. Priya asked what was wrong, and right as she said it, I saw a shape duck between 2 trees and take off down a side path. Low and fast, like they didn't want to be seen standing up. I chased it maybe 30 feet before I lost it completely in the dark. When I circled back, Priya was standing frozen where I'd left her, and she told me it looked like the shape had been crouched there watching us for a while before it moved. We laughed it off at the bar the next day, sort of. You have to, or the trip's ruined. But something had shifted. We started locking the bungalow's screen door even during the day. We mentioned the mangrove incident to one of the groundskeepers that morning, half as a joke, half because we genuinely wanted someone to tell us it was probably just a raccoon or a stray dog. He didn't laugh it off the way we expected. He got quiet, told us to keep our patio locked at night regardless, and said something about people from the village sometimes, wandering onto the grounds looking for things to take, though his eyes didn't quite match the casual way he said it. It wasn't reassuring. It made everything feel a little more real. On the 4th afternoon, we were lying by the pool when a man in a resort polo walked up with a professional camera slung around his neck and asked to take our picture for the property's guest gallery. Apparently they did this for couples sometimes, a nice little parting gift emailed to you at checkout. We posed, he had us adjust twice for the light, snapped 2 photos, thanked us, and walked off toward the lobby. He had this odd stillness to him, barely blinking while he talked, but I chalked it up to just being awkward at his job. We watched him the whole way out of pure idle curiosity, and he never once once stopped to photograph anyone else by the pool, which struck me as strange only after the fact. The front desk, when we mentioned it that evening out of pure curiosity while asking when the photos would be emailed, had no idea what we were talking about. Nobody on staff carries a personal camera or does pool photography, they told us. They use a resort account and a phone, and never without a guest requesting it first. That night I couldn't sleep, still turning the pool encounter over in my head. Around 1:40 a.m., I heard it, the unmistakable double click and soft whir of a camera shutter, coming from just outside our screened patio, maybe 8 feet from where Priya was sleeping. I sat up slowly and saw a silhouette pressed close to the mesh, angled toward the bed, holding something up to their face, perfectly still, except for the small motion of a finger pressing down. I shouted. The shape bolted off the patio into the dark tree line and was gone before I even got the sliding door open. We called the front desk immediately, and this time they took it seriously, moved us to a different room near the main building within the hour, and told us they'd pull surveillance in the morning. We almost didn't want to see it, but we did, sitting in a back office with the resort's head of security while he scrubbed through timestamps. The footage showed a man in dark clothing walking the property paths on all 3 of our nights there, always alone, always sticking to the unlit edges, ducking behind planters whenever another guest passed. On the second night's footage, the night before the staff photographer ever approached us at the pool, he's seen standing outside our original bungalow's patio for 11 full minutes, completely motionless, camera raised the entire time, a full hour before we'd even gotten back from dinner that evening. He'd been there before we noticed anything, before the mangroves, before we'd felt watched at all. That was the detail that actually made Priya start crying in that security office, not the stalking itself, but realizing it had started on night 1, silently, while we thought we had the place entirely to ourselves. Security never found him. He wasn't on any guest list, wasn't an employee past or present, and the footage from the front gate that would have shown how he got in and out had a mysterious 20-minute gap on the exact night he'd approached us at the pool in the polo shirt. A gap the security head couldn't explain and, from the look on his face, clearly didn't like either. We flew home the next morning, checked out early, said nothing to the staff on our way out except thank you. Priya and I split up about a year later, for reasons that had nothing to do with any of this. But every so often, she still texts me a single line out of nowhere. Do you think he ever got a picture of us actually asleep? I never have an answer for her. Story 3. The detour through Baxter Hollow. I drive for work more than I'd like to admit, and last November I had one trip that ended my habit of doing long stretches at night for good. I was driving back from a job in Springfield, Missouri, heading home to my apartment about 5 hours east, and I decided to leave at 9 p.m. so I'd wake up in my own bed instead of another motel with a mattress like a park bench. I told myself it would be a quiet, easy drive with almost no traffic, just me and a podcast and the highway. I've made worse decisions in my life, but not many that cost me as much. About 2 hours in, a storm rolled through that the weather app hadn't warned me about at all. Sideways rain first, hammering the windshield so hard my wipers couldn't keep up, then a fog so thick and low that my headlights just bounced it straight back at me in a solid white wall. I slowed to a crawl, then a state trooper's flares appeared out of nowhere on the shoulder. Road closed, bridge washout, detour ahead. I followed the little orange signs onto a county road I'd never heard of, in a part of the Ozarks where my GPS gave up entirely and just showed a blank gray screen with a spinning circle. The detour road narrowed until it was barely one lane, gravel turning to dirt, trees pressing in close on both sides. My phone had no bars. I hadn't seen another car in what felt like 45 minutes, though it was probably 20. Then the engine started sputtering, a rough shudder running through the whole car. I checked the temperature gauge and it was pinned in the red. I'd find out later a hose had split, probably from a rock kicked up somewhere back on the highway before the detour even started. I coasted the car to the shoulder just as it died completely, in the pitch dark, in the middle of nowhere, in a storm, with rain hammering the roof loud enough that I could barely hear myself think. I sat there for what felt like forever before headlights appeared behind me, crawling slow. An old pickup truck pulled up alongside, and the passenger window rolled down to reveal a woman, maybe 60, who asked if I was broke down. I said yes. She said her husband could take a look, real friendly about it, and something in me wanted so badly to believe that was all this was. The man who got out was enormous, quiet, and went straight to popping my hood without much conversation, just a grunt and a nod. The woman got out too, but instead of joining him at the engine, she started walking toward me. She started talking about the storm, about how the county never fixes this road, about the government, on and on in this rambling, half-coherent way, drifting closer with every sentence, until I realized I was backed almost against the bed of their truck without ever consciously deciding to move. Every time I tried to angle myself back toward my own car, she'd shift her body just enough to cut off the path, still talking the entire time like nothing was happening. That's when I noticed the tarp in the truck bed, close enough now that I could smell wet canvas and something coppery underneath it. It was lumpy, uneven, tied down hard at all four corners like it was covering something specific and not just loose cargo. She smiled and told me there was something back there she wanted to show me, real quick, before her husband finished. I said I was fine right where I was. She didn't like that. She stepped closer, and I heard the man's footsteps coming around the far side of the truck at the same time, too fast for someone just walking back to say the engine looked bad. The tarp moved on its own. A third person, younger, wiry, already holding a folding knife, rolled out from underneath it and lunged for my jacket sleeve. I don't fully remember deciding to run. I remember hitting the wet dirt as I twisted away from his hand, then being upright and sprinting off the road into the tree line, branches tearing at my face because staying on that open road felt like the fastest way to get caught. I heard the younger one crashing through the brush behind me for a while, branches snapping, his breathing loud enough to track even in the dark, and then nothing. I kept moving anyway, deeper into the woods, cutting sideways whenever I could to throw off anyone still following until my legs finally gave out, and I just sat with my back against a tree, soaked through, freezing, straining to hear anything over my own heartbeat. That's when I heard the old woman's voice again, calling out through the trees, not close, but not far either. She wasn't yelling for help. She was calling out a name that wasn't mine, over and over, like she was calling a dog back to the porch. I didn't move. I barely breathed for what felt like an hour. When it finally went silent, I circled back toward the road from a different angle. My car was still there. Driver door hanging open, the interior torn apart, glove box emptied onto the seat. The truck was gone. I walked almost 2 hours before I hit a 2-pump gas station with actual lights on, the most beautiful sight I think I've ever seen. The clerk took one look at me, soaked, scratched up from the branches, still shaking, and didn't ask questions before letting me use the phone. He called the sheriff's office for me and made me a cup of coffee I never drank because my hands wouldn't stop shaking enough to hold it steady. The deputies who eventually showed up almost an hour later told me, almost casually, like it was old news, that they'd had reports out of that hollow before, going back a few years. They didn't elaborate on what kind of reports, and something in the way the older deputy said it told me not to ask twice. They drove the road with me the next morning to find my car, and even in daylight, with 2 armed officers standing right beside me, I didn't want to get within 20 feet of that truck bed's tire tracks still pressed into the mud. I got my car towed 2 days later. I never went back for the stuff that was missing from it. My laptop, my bag, a jacket that had belonged to my late father. I still don't take detours at night, no matter what the flares tell me to do. And I've started keeping a paper map in my glove box for the day my phone gives out somewhere with no bars again. Story 4. The Couples on the Sand. My girlfriend Renee and I took a week off in June to drive down to Destin, Florida, mostly because we both work in ER medicine and we needed to remember what quiet felt like after a stretch of back-to-back overnight shifts that left us both hollowed out. We rented a little place 2 blocks off the beach, and for 6 days it was exactly the reset we needed. Long mornings, slow dinners, nothing that beeped or paged either of us. I also had a ring in my suitcase the entire trip, hidden inside a rolled-up pair of socks, waiting for the right night to actually ask. Our last night, we walked down to the beach around 11 p.m., just the 2 of us, sand still warm from the day. The tide was out, the moon was nearly full, and the water was doing that thing where it looks lit from underneath, this pale silver glow rolling in and pulling back. It felt like the night. I'd already decided I was going to ask her before we walked back, the ring sitting heavy in my pocket the whole walk down. We were sitting close together on the sand when Renee went quiet mid-sentence. I asked if she was okay, and she said 2 people were standing off to the side, just watching us, and had been for a bit. I looked over and saw a couple maybe 20 feet away, not moving, just facing our direction. They started walking toward us. As they got closer, I could make out the woman, barefoot, hair a mess of tight curls, wearing a cover-up over her suit, smiling in this fixed, pleasant way that didn't reach anywhere else on her face. The man beside her had a thick beard, a flannel shirt despite the heat, unbuttoned, and he was smiling the exact same way like they'd both been told to. They stopped right in front of us, too close, standing over us while we sat. Renee, who does not have a patient bone in her body after a 12-hour shift, said, "Can we help you with something?" The woman said in this slow, almost sweet voice, "You two look like you belong to each other." I laughed a little, nervous, not knowing what else to do. Renee told them thanks and that we'd like some privacy. The woman's smile didn't change even a little. She said, "That's all right. We'll wait." Wait for what? I didn't ask. I should have grabbed Renee's hand right then and walked us both straight back to the house. Instead, we sat there another minute, stunned, while two more people appeared out of the dark and walked up to join them. A second man and woman, both smiling the same fixed smile, both stopping close enough that I could smell salt and sunscreen off their skin. The first woman turned to the new couple and said cheerfully, "Look who found us." That's when it stopped feeling like an odd interaction and started feeling like something with a shape to it, something coordinated. Four strangers, all smiling, closing in slowly, inch by inch, until one of them was standing near enough that her foot brushed my leg, and I could see her eyes weren't tracking quite right, dark and flat even in the moonlight. I stood up between Renee and the group and told the nearest man to back off. He laughed. They all laughed, this synced, easy laugh that hit at the exact same beat like they'd rehearsed it. And for one stupid second, I actually felt relieved, like maybe I'd misread a joke that had gone on a little too long. Then he hit me, full force, no warning, no wind-up. I never saw it coming. The second man joined in almost instantly, and I was on the ground taking hits from both directions while Renee screamed and tried to claw one of them off my back, and the woman who'd spoken first shoved her down hard into the sand without even losing that smile for a second. I felt someone's hand digging into the flannel pocket for something. I found out after that it was a box cutter, and that's the moment my body did something my brain never consciously decided to do. I grabbed a fistful of wet sand and threw it straight into the nearest man's eyes, then shoved hard enough to get one leg free, grabbed Renee by the wrist, and we ran, sprinting up the beach toward the string of house lights in the distance, not daring to look back until we'd put real distance between us. We didn't stop until we were inside the rental with the door bolted and every light in the house off. Both of us crouched below the window line just in case. My face was bleeding from somewhere near my eyebrow. My ribs felt caved in on one side every time I breathed, and Renee kept saying my name over and over like she needed to physically confirm I was actually still there beside her. We didn't call the police that night. I know how that sounds now. At the time, all either of us wanted was to be somewhere those four people didn't know how to find. We left at 5 a.m. the next morning, bags already half-packed from the night before. As we pulled out of the driveway, both women from the beach were standing on the corner of our own street, just standing there, not doing anything, and they turned to watch our car go by. One of them waved, slowly, like we were old friends leaving a party a little early. I filed a report once we got home. Nothing ever came of it. No names, no matches, nothing on file for that stretch of beach that night, not even a matching description from other visitors, which somehow made it worse. Renee still has a small scar on her palm from where she caught herself in the sand trying to pull one of them off me. I never did propose that trip. I did it 3 months later, in our own kitchen, somewhere with 4 solid walls and a locked door, and I've never once regretted moving it somewhere so plain and so safe. 4 different trips, 4 different states, 4 sets of people who did everything right, locked their doors, trusted their instincts eventually, ran when it mattered, and still walked away from their vacation with something that doesn't fully leave. That's the part nobody warns you about before you travel. It's not the plane, it's not the wrong turn, it's not even the strangers who look a little off. It's the ones who don't look off at all, right up until they're standing too close. If one of these stayed with you, don't scroll past it. Drop the one that got you the most in the comments, because I read every single one. And if you've got your own story like this, I want to hear it. Subscribe before you go, because next week's 4 stories are worse than these. And I mean that. Stay safe out there, and maybe just check the basement before you unpack.